I too would like to make a contribution in the matter of public importance that we're debating here today into the Abbott government's unfair budget based on broken promises and twisted priorities. In Senator Mason's contribution to this debate, he talked about keeping it simple. He said, let's keep it simple. Well, I will remind Senator Mason and those senators that are here listening to this debate what the Prime Minister said during the federal election campaign. And he said, "I want to be known as a Prime Minister who keeps commitments. I will do what I say we will do." It's pretty simple, Mr. Acting Deputy President. Very, very simple. And many people out in the community, many electors, took Mr. Abbott at his word when he said no cuts to pensions, no cuts to education, and no cuts to the ABC, SBS, and no cuts to education. And they took him at his word when he said he wanted to be a Prime Minister that keeps his commitments. Well, on budget night, they found out that he wasn't that Prime Minister. He wasn't a Prime Minister that kept his promises. He wasn't a Prime Minister that kept his commitments. What we saw on budget night was a budget full of broken promises, a budget full of twisted priorities. And who was the budget aimed at? It was aimed at, as Senator Seawood said in her contribution, at those easy targets, those least able to afford or to defend themselves, those already struggling to make ends meet. That's who this government has targeted. Also, in Senator Mason's contribution, he talked about people seeking handouts. So let's have a look at who Senator Mason is actually talking about when he talks about people seeking handouts. He's talking about the cuts to the age pension, pensioners seeking handouts. This is what has happened in the budget, the Abbott budget, their very first budget, a complete and utter breach of faith with the community to those that voted for this government, a breach of faith. And the community have woken up to it. They don't like this budget, they don't want this budget, and they want this government to do as they said they would do, and that is to keep their commitments. And that's what the Labor Party intend to do. We intend to keep this government to account, to say day after day and highlight day after day what promises they made, and we intend to hold them to account. So let's have a look at the cuts to the age pension. Now, we've just had a report from the Parliamentary Budget Office. The projections of government spending over the medium term confirms massive cuts through the budget. They have confirmed the true extent of the Abbott government's massive cuts to the age pension, family payments, disability support pension and carers pension. Now, the Parliamentary Budget Office report shows that the cuts include, Mr Acting Deputy President, $23 billion to the age pension, $40 billion cuts to family payments, $8 billion to the disability support pension and $3 billion hit to the carer support pension. Now, we have already seen, when we talk about the pension index system and the changes that this government wants to put in place in terms of a new indexation system, we know that a single pensioner on a maximum rate, and let's understand what that actually means, that means around $20,000 a year, a single age pensioner on a maximum rate would be around $1,500 a year worse off than they are today. That's a massive amount of money for a pensioner. And it's not just the indexation, it's all the other bits and pieces that this government, not only through their budget, but also through other pieces of legislation where they're tightening up measures and seeking to exclude people from accessing more payment and more support, they are making it even harder. And this is just one measure that I'm talking about here today. There are so many measures in this budget that is so unfair, and that is why the community have not accepted what this government wants to do, because it is unfair and because it is a massive breach of faith by this government to the people of Australia. It's a breach of faith to the Tasmanian people, the people I represent. They too took Mr Abbott at his word when he said there would be no cuts to education and health and no cuts to pensions. They took him at his word. They believed him. They no longer do. This government has a real problem, and it's not just the budget, but it's also one of credibility. And they brought it on themselves, because no longer had they been in there for a few months. They set about breaking some of the most fundamental promises that they made to the community. And then they come in here and say, we did this because we have to fix our budget problem. They've changed their rhetoric on that time and time again. One week it's a crisis, another one's we're managing it. But what they did is they chose the easiest targets in the community. They didn't do the hard work. They didn't do the heavy lifting. They just said, OK, there's a group of people, easy targets, we'll make these changes, we'll get this through. We can't be bothered actually doing what we're here to do, and that is to make to keep their commitments, to do what the Prime Minister asked them to do, said he would do. He wants to be the Prime Minister who keeps commitments, who will do what he says he will do. Well, he wasn't, and he isn't. And it's about time that he actually stood up and accepted that this is a budget that is harsh and unfair.
Your time is up.